Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Middleton Methods podcast. I'm Sam.
And I'm Brandon.
And you get to come be a fly on our wall to get practical tips, gain insight, and laugh at our expense. So welcome. That was a polite laugh. My girlfriend and I like to call that a fake laugh.
Fake laugh.
Oh my gosh.
Kathy Small.
So we are coming at you. Yeah, shout out to Kat. Whoop whoop. So we are coming at you at two different states today. I am at home and Brandon's in Beverly Hills.
Live via satellite feed.
Yeah, so this is exciting because it actually leads into our Middleton Madness for the week because, oh my gosh, how crazy was Sunday morning, babe?
We were up late Saturday night too, weren't we?
I think so. Just like, we were hanging out watching a movie. So take this. I'm sure you guys, somebody has been through this that's listening today. And I don't know if it was as stressful for Brandon as it was for me, but I'm a little bit of, what would you say? Like I just have a little bit of a challenge. Like when it's getting close to a trip, I don't like packing very last minute. I don't like procrastinating on everything. I want things to be packed like a day in advance. So then everything is smooth sailing when it's time to go to the airport. But Brandon's like the complete opposite. It's like he will be packing things very last minute. So I like leading up to this trip, I kept telling him, all right, babe, I want to have some time with you on Sunday morning. We have our weekly mastermind call, and then you only have like 20 minutes after your call before you're going to have to leave. So we got to really be on point, make sure you're packed and ready to go.
Mm-hmm. You're a little bit of a control freak in some ways when it comes to planning.
A freak, thanks. So here we are on Sunday morning, and we're doing the call, and Brandon's like, I got this, babe. I don't have a lot to pack. I'll be good. And he disappears into the room to pack before we get on our call, which is at 8 in the morning, so it's very early. But here we are. I do the announcements at the end of this call, and I go into our room, and what do I see but an empty suitcase? I'm telling you, my heart dropped into my stomach. I seriously started to, I could feel the anxiety rising because I knew Brandon had to leave. And we're still on this call, and he doesn't have one thing packed in this suitcase. Not one thing. It is completely
Now, to give
empty.
me some credit, though, I did have everything kind of set out. Like, I knew about what I was taking. I kind of had my piles in the closet. You didn't see this, but I had all my stuff hanging up in, one section of the closet. I had all my bathroom stuff, in a pile on the corner. So I knew if I had to, if the call was running late, it was going to be okay, because I could just, come and, swipe it all into a bag and... half my stuff was wrinkled, but I just ironed it when I got here.
Says you, but the reality is not only did we get off the call late, but you left a half hour late for the airport. I ended up having to drive because, Grandpa would take forever. So I had to drive him to the airport so that he would get there on time. And then I dropped him off at the wrong airline because I was spacing and I wasn't thinking.
You thought you dropped me off at the wrong airline.
I did. I dropped you off at Delta. You're flying American.
Oh. Right.
So I dropped him off at the wrong airline because I'm so used to him flying Delta, and I forgot that I had booked him on a different airline this time. And so it was just craziness. And then we get to the airport, and curbside was ridiculous. So I started getting really nervous because he only had not even an hour.
Meanwhile, I'm pretty cool, calm, and collected the whole time. I'm like, it's gonna work out. But then I got inside, and not only was the line crazy at curbside, but it was quadruple the size inside. Then I started to sweat a little bit. I figured, all right, now I'm probably going to have to sweet talk some TSA lady and be like, oh, I'm going to miss my flight. Can I, which they never really seemed to give a damn. And funny enough, I'm sweating a little bit, texting Sam, because of course I don't know my itinerary. I don't know my flight number. I don't know anything until I'm there in the moment. And then I'm like, oh, I should probably check my calendar, my email, So I'm trying to check in at the kiosk, and nothing's working. And that's because I wasn't on Delta. Thank goodness, because I go over to American. There's one person in line. I was like, wow, this is sweet. It all worked out.
He actually checked in with because I pulled over to get him the right thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're totally at the wrong airline, that's why. And all the information, mind you, is in Brandon's calendar. Like everything, he's got everything he needs when he gets to the airport. It's all there. So we finally figure out that he's at the wrong thing. He goes over. You're welcome, babe. And not only does he fly through check-in, fly through security, he's at the gate. He's like, I'm at the gate, and I wasn't even home yet. That's like record timing. Because we only live like 20 minutes away from the airport. So that was like, oh my gosh, all that madness. It just reminds me not to like freak out too much, but it's just going to be the time that I'm all cool, calm, and collected that you'll miss your flight. So if it wasn't for me being like a total, freak, total freak in the mornings to get you to the airport on time, you would probably miss your flights.
It would have been all right. I had like a 3-hour layover. I was like, yeah, well, maybe I just won't have a layover if I miss my flight. It all would have worked. It all would have worked out.
It's all going to work out the way it's supposed to.
Now, the red eye going home, I'm not very excited about. I'll just tell you. I was actually, just quick sidebar. So, I'm at this mastermind. We're at the little reception last night, and I'm sitting next to Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. And he was flying out on the red eye last night, and he was talking about how he wanted to, he has to have a layover in Atlanta, and he's all frustrated about it. Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but he seemed like, man, I wish I could not have a layover, right? That's a long flight, and then you're almost home, and then you still have this one little, hour-long flight. And I almost got in a little bit of trouble because I was like, oh, yeah, my wife said the only way to get a direct flight is Southwest. And he's like, what? My travel agent said there was no, I don't think he would have done it, but he wanted to know he had the option. Like most of us overachievers, we may not want to take the straight Southwest coach flight, but it was, we wanted to have the option. And
yeah, that's the
it's
Vegas,
only a morning,
just
it's
so
only
you know.
a morning flight, morning flight, but not red eye. So that was the topic of conversation for like half our little networking last night, was checking Southwest flights, because for the record, there's no Southwest direct flight from LA on a red eye. So I will have to be home. I will leave Wednesday, but I will not be home until Thursday. Yeah,
I feel the need right now to let you know that was a discussion about when you go to Vegas for your quarterlies.
Oh. Anyway.
So let's move on to our topic this week, because we want to talk about paying off debt the right way. And this topic came up because somebody reached out to us this week and said that they have several, between credit cards and car payments and school loans, they feel like they're overwhelmed with the amount of debt they have to pay off. And what is the best approach? What's the best way to do it? How do you pay off your debt the best way possible? So that is what we want to discuss today, because it really is a hot topic.
Why is that important?
Why is it important?
I think a lot of people get worried about the debt that they have, because it's like no one wants to owe anybody anything.
Right.
But what we're going to talk about today is going to help you kind of understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, because they're really, when you know that, you can get less stressed off about, like we have a mortgage. A lot of people want to pay off their house because they think their house is an asset. We talked about this a little bit, talking about the game Cash Flow 101 last week on our podcast, and how your house is a liability, not an asset. So you don't want to be in a rush to pay off. That's good debt. No, it's cheap money, as we call it. You have a very low interest rate for a very long term. You'd be kind of foolish to pay off that versus maybe a high interest credit card. So we just kind of want to give you some examples, talk through, good debt versus bad debt, and maybe set your mind at ease on some of these things that you think, oh my gosh, I got to pay them off. Like I can't get to that next level, or I can't start my business, or I can't invest in my retirement or something, because first I have to, start from zero debt, right? I have to get rid of this before I can start that, and that's definitely not the case.
Right. So let's start with there's an article that we read on time.com that does have the steps, the exact steps we're going to share with you today on what to look at when you're looking at your debt as a whole. And this is exactly what we did when we were in the same situation years ago and the market crashed and we like lost our butts and really ruined our credit. Like for a long time, we had this big fear of having debt. Everything was cash. And even though we still have that mindset for the most part, like we do, like Brandon said, we do have a mortgage on our house. We don't own our house in cash. So there are some things that are considered good debt that help build your credit, do restore it. And I'll tell you, like even from the transition of when like our credit, both of our credits had totally tanked, like our credit is much, much better than it was 10 years ago now because we put the right things in place. So
yeah, if you think for a second that we didn't have credit debt problems, we were $250,000 we were $250 in the houses, $70,000 in consumer credit card debt, 2 short sales on destroyed our credit. We had so much, we had personal loans, everything. Like we were in debt in every possible way. So for those of you who may have $5,000, $10,000 in credit cards or something, like we feel your pain. We've been there, and there's a little three steps to kind of get your way out of that.
So let's talk about the difference between the good debt and the bad debt, babe, because I know you already hit on it a little bit, but there is stuff like a mortgage payment, education. That is what is considered good debt. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, good debt is, I'll really just kind of frame it as like cheap money, like I said earlier. So all we have to invest is our time and our money, right? So if you go to work and you earn $1,000, well, now you have that $1,000 that you got, you have to pay your bills, and then what you have left over, you can choose to hopefully invest in something, even if it's investing in your family. You're going to spend that money on something, right? So the good debt is anything that you can borrow cheaper than what you can go make with it. So if I'm borrowing, $100,000 on a mortgage on a house at 5%, is it better for me to pay off that debt at 5%, or is it better for me to keep that debt in place, leverage, right, and go and put that extra cash into something where I can maybe earn 7%, 10%, 15%? A couple episodes back, we talked about how we used our IRAs to purchase a rental property and then sold it, almost a year later, and made like an 18% return. Well, what if we had the mindset that first we have to pay off this, we have to pay off our house before we can go and buy that rental property? That wouldn't have made any sense, right? Because we're able to make that money make 18% instead of, if you pay off your mortgage, you're only paying off 5%. So really it's how cheap you can get the money interest rate wise, and how long you have to pay it off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So just to recap on that though, so how they classify on time.com is really, I like the way they worded it. So they say there's no need to put pressure on yourself to repay good debt as long as you can continue to make the regular installment payments, because that stuff is helping you leverage your cash flow. So also, on the other hand, there are things that don't boost your financial position, like a car loan or buying an engagement ring. That's a really good one. Somebody wants to go propose to their girl, and they go out and they get a K's credit card and they max that thing out, and they buy like a few grand on an engagement ring, and that is bad debt. That thing is not putting you in a good financial position. It's actually just extending your finances.
It's consumer debt.
Yes, and what the rule on that is if you can't pay off what you're borrowing within a couple of months, it's considered bad debt. So if you want to go buy a fancy ring, it's going to take you a year to pay off. You now have yourself bad debt on your hands. And that's how time.com puts it.
With the exception of home, car, and education, right? Because those are usually such large amounts of debt that they have longer terms and lower interest rates. But consumer, a K's credit card is going to have a huge, 20% interest rate if you don't, if you only make the minimum monthly payments. But
right. So that does lead into our next step, which is, okay, so you have this bad debt, and that's the debt that you should be tackling first. As long as you're making your regular installments on your mortgage and all that other good debt, just keep making your payments. But those credit cards that, like, you bought a fancy gift, or you took an expensive vacation or whatever, like, that's the stuff that you want to go tackle first. So how do you do that?
Real quick, just for my entrepreneurs out there, or my wannabe entrepreneurs out there, the difference, though, is you can use a consumer credit card that most people use for clothes and eating out and entertainment that has a high interest rate. You can make that good debt by what we did. Some of our first businesses, the things that we had to buy, the people we had to hire, we did it all on our credit cards because we knew we were spending the money, that was going to make us, build us the business that was going to make us 30, 40, 50% profit margin. So if you're spending the money on doodads and liabilities, then that is true. But you can, if you have, like some of the first equipment that we bought, right, Sam, we bought on credit cards. We knew we may not be able to pay it off for a year. Some of these credit cards gave us that 12 months interest free. So we would leverage that to have it basically be our first kind of partners in our business. The credit cards were like our investors for the short term.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you got to start looking at your income versus your bills, and that the podcast that we were sharing, how much you should be spending on like your rent or your mortgage, and how much you should be spending on your utilities and stuff. Well, you don't want to exceed that, to overextend yourselves that you can't make your payments. So if you are getting an interest-free, that's free money. So obviously it's a much more tempting to take those opportunities, but just keep in mind, you still have to think about the amount of income that's coming in the house. So just know where you're at on that. But there is one thing that I love, which is, on the next part, like where are you going to get the biggest boost when you're looking at your bad debt? But there's one form of really good debt that immediately, like when we're talking about all these things that we could spend money on, like, extra clothes or purses or whatever. But the one thing that I really, really, really have always been okay with us leveraging, even if we didn't see a return right away, is like a training or a seminar or something that was going to give us the information we needed that was going to help our business grow or help our mindset shift. So, like, for example, there's lots of gurus these days that realize that somebody cannot necessarily afford to spend $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 on that event that they need to go grow their business, but they'll offer to do it in 3 payments or 4 payments. And when those opportunities come up for myself and Brandon, those are the opportunities we like to take advantage of because there's no interest on them. And that stuff is immediately will boost our financial position as long as we're applying what we're learning.
Yeah, I remember the Choose to Be Rich program was like $500. Robert Kiyosaki had like a infomercial running, and it was like, here's this $500 course, but if you call now, we will send it to you absolutely free for 30 days. So you could try it, and if you didn't like it, you just sent it back. And there was, of course, the 30 days I called, and they were like, how about we just break this up over 5 payments or whatever? And thank goodness they did, because I actually quit my job and was off to the races shortly after that.
All right, so how do you look at your bad debt and figure out what to pay first? Because when we were talking with our friend over the last week, that was something that came up. Like, naturally, you were giving advice to them, Brandon, about like, okay, here's what you want to go focus on. You want to get rid of your bad debt. But then it was like, okay, well, I have several things in my bad debt category. So which ones am I going to focus on first? So what you do want to look at, the main thing is your interest rates. I mean, if you're gonna put, there's the interest rate and what your credit limit is. Those are the 2 main things that you want to take into consideration when it's like, what do I pay off first? This Best Buy credit card, or what's another example, Brandon? Or just like, or my, whatever, your other credit card, your Visa. I have my Visa card or my Best Buy card, and I have debt on both of these, and which one do I go for first?
Yeah, the ones with the highest interest rates and the ones that you probably have maxed out. So the rule is anything. So if you have a $1,000 balance, you don't want to have any more, or if you have $1,000 credit limit, you don't want to spend any more than $300 on it. You don't want to carry any more than a $300 balance. Like all of our credit cards, we finally have gotten, back into using our credit, but only for the reason that we want points. We spend so much money on travel and business things that we just want a little bit of, perks or whatever. But so we use our credit cards, and it's Money Monday. Every Monday we pay off our credit cards completely. We carry zero balance. But if we ever had to carry a balance, and those of you who do have to carry a balance, it's no more than 30%. So even those, when in this market, they're giving away credit like crazy. You get approved for a $10,000 credit card. Do not go nuts and think you've got 10,000. You really only have 3,000.
Right. And then on top of it, now that you can kind of look at your finances and go, okay, this is the credit card I got to pay down first because I've maxed this one out. So let me pay this one down. Then you want to also consider what the interest rates are on your cards. So for example, let's say you went to, Haverty's Furniture and they offer you no interest for 12 months on your couch, but after a year, it shoots up to 18%. But on your Visa credit card, you have 6%. Well, if you've only had your couch for 3 months, you still have 9 months before that 18% kicks in. Just keep paying your minimum on there and really focus on that 6% card and getting that balance to zero, because you're paying more money out by having an interest rate.
Pay a little more than the minimum if you can, right? Because you'll bring down the principal slowly. So it won't be such a shock. Like, you don't want to wait till 2 months before the couch needs to be paid off, and then you have to come up with that big chunk.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cash flow thing. If you can't afford to do it, you can't afford to do it. But if you can afford to do it, you do it. But the point was, don't focus on the no interest debt, right? Focus on your interest debt, because that's where you're spending more money. And it's the same difference as 0% or 6%. Which one are you spending more on? The 6% card. So naturally, you just want to pay that one down faster.
Yep, absolutely.
Finally, you also want to consider what is actually affecting your credit. There are certain things that do affect your credit more than others and help your credit grow. So that's one thing we noticed as we were making changes. It's called the utilization ratio. So what is helping your credit score grow?
What's helping your credit score grow? The number of revolving lines. I think they want to see at least 3, lines, and the types of loans. So a car loan is usually pretty easy to get car loan, and they look at that a little bit differently than if you just have a consumer credit card. So that affects your credit as well. And so if you have $1,000 credit card and you need to keep the balance less than 300, another way to adjust that ratio without actually having to pay off the credit is if you've been good, right? You haven't missed your payments, or you haven't had a maxed out credit card for too long. If your credit score is decent enough, you can call your credit card company and ask for a increase your credit limit, right? So if you've been a good customer and you've paid your bills on time, especially if you have a lower credit card, or if you've maybe you got the credit card 5 years ago and nothing's changed, but you've been promoted or you have other income now, you can basically call and have your credit limit increased. Now you didn't pay anything more, you haven't paid down the debt, but you instantly changed the ratio. Now you have a $5,000 credit card. Now you went from a maxed out credit card to a credit card that only has 20% balance.
Yeah, so while I have you on, the kind of this, it's almost like a business topic, right? I know debt usually becomes more of a personal thing, but I do want to jump onto our no BS business tips with Brandon, because we have a couple of things that I think you're really going to vibe on this week, Brandon. So one question came in from Jose in Miami. He wants to know, when did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Whoa. So if you listen to our earlier podcast, you know our story. We, after high school, moved to Florida. We're on our own for about a year, and then Sam's stepfather gave me this kind of in job at the top floor of the building. Kind of had a few steps. I felt like I had a few steps into the corporate ladder. and I had the corporate kind of desk job, and I was kind of set up with all the perks, and the only catch was my mom lived in Florida and was sick, and she was a big motivator for me to want to be an entrepreneur, want to be successful. Not necessarily an entrepreneur at the time. I didn't care how I made the money, but my mom was sick and poor, and I needed to figure it out. So I remember my mom had a heart attack, and I was able to leave, the corporate job. There was kind of no questions asked. Go ahead. And I was with her, and then, it was kind of like a mild heart attack, I guess, if there's even such a thing. But it supposedly wasn't anything to be too concerned with. But after my visit, I came back. But her health wasn't doing that great even just a few months later. And I kind of started to feel like, all right, this really is, I really need to have more control. I need to kind of speed up this process. Like, my mom may not have another 5 years, 10 years, 30 years for me to wait, get the gold watch, and then be able to take care of her, right? I need to figure this out quick. And it's funny, I was talking about the Choose to Be Rich home study course that I bought off that infomercial. I was actually listening to that at my desk while I was working. Like, I had a kind of a menial job, and I would listen to that because I was like filling in spreadsheets and doing research and really boring stuff. So I had to keep my mind active and try to figure out how to escape the rat race. And I remember just that obviously made me see that there was other possibilities besides the 30-year plan. And one day I mustered up the courage to go into to request a meeting with your stepdad and go into his office. And I remember just wanting to ask for a raise, but more not for the short term. Like, all right, what's the path? Like, how do I get to wherever you see me, in the higher level positions, or being able to earn commissions where I can have more control over my income? Like, what's the plan for that? And what I basically got, the answer I got was, be patient. You may have to go back to school. Don't worry too much about that. We've got a few more years before we even have that conversation, right? Like, basically, everything's in his control. Like you may relate to this, like your boss, your direct report, or the CEO, whoever you talk to, like, they control your income. And I remember just feeling like, wow, first of all, I had a relationship. I felt like, because I was kind of the boss's daughter or son, oh my God. Like, hook a brother up, my mom just had a heart attack, like, not asking for pity, but just like, hey, like, I'm hungry and I will go after this for many other reasons. I'm not just another employee. Like, this can be like a family business thing. Like, let's go. Right. I'm ready.
For me, because I remember this time in our life, and for me it was more like
a shutdown.
Well, it was more like all this money he throws around and does this and does that, and I've seen him do stuff like that for years. And then the thought of, like, wait a minute, you don't even want to help my boyfriend? Like, I live with him. He's like helping to support our dreams and our future and our goals, and you can't even like lay out the plan what that's going to look like. You don't see what that looks like for us. Like, we just knew immediately he was not engaged in our future at all. Sorry, I'm sorry though, I interrupted you, but I thought that was important because that was like, on my side, I was like, wait a minute. So that definitely raised a red flag.
Yeah, so that's when I knew.
For me, it was, I'll tell you, for me, it was a little different. I didn't even realize it was like because you were definitely on the entrepreneurial path way before I was, but I supported you, like, right? My why was us. And so whatever ventures and road that was going to take us down at the time, I was in it. I was willing to try it. And we had backup plans and backup plans to our backup plans and backup plans to our backup plans to our backup plans. So I wasn't really like worried about the outcome as much as I was like, okay, why we don't know unless we go try this, and let's do it while we're young. So for me, it wasn't until it was like maybe 4 years after we started our business and going through lots of ups and downs and struggles, and one business failing and starting another, and all this like back and forth and hopping around. And there was two things that really played in for me. One was being, for a very short amount of time, we were roommates with another couple. And as much as I loved them to pieces, it was really challenging for me to see one of the people in the relationship not believe in what the other person was doing towards their future. And there were times where I had self-doubt whether the entrepreneurial path was the right thing for us. And then it was like those people were put in our lives at that time, that close, for a reason. And it just reminded me always like that I had to be supportive of what Brandon, like he had a bigger vision in his mind for us than I had for ourselves at the time. So I really had to like focus on that and stick to the positive. But then later on, that I think it was not even for another year after that of just like pushing and pushing and pushing. We had worked with one person for a whole year, but again, it was a similar situation to having a job where we thought we were playing entrepreneur, but we really weren't. We started to see our contract with them shifting and changing because they had complete control over it, and they really weren't paying mind to our value as much as just what they wanted to pay us. And when we started to see the shift, we realized, wow, we can't really throw all our eggs in one basket, and started to think of the possibility of getting multiple clients at one time. So at that point, we started to diversify, and it was the first time that we ever had 3 clients at one time. That was when I really, really knew, like, wow, this is where it's at. I really want to be an entrepreneur. I finally felt like all that work that we were putting in, I could see that we could keep that, we could sustain that over a long amount of time. We could have multiple streams of income. It didn't necessarily have to be many clients in that one business, which for a while it was for us as we were growing because we were good at it. But as we've become even better, we realized, well, we could diversify and do real estate. We can diversify and do our marketing. You know, we can do our podcast at the same time. There's multiple things that we can bring in as different streams of income. So that little shift all those years ago gave me the confidence. And what I want to just say to that too, Brandon, really fast. I'm sorry, I totally stole your business tip.
No,
your
you're
no
fine.
BS, your no BS business corner.
You know, there's
so
people
forgive
out
me.
there's entrepreneurs out there with spouses who maybe weren't or are not yet on board with what they're doing. So this is good feedback.
Yeah, and that's the point that I was about to go on to. You know, like even during those times, like making that mental shift, like whatever you have to do to be able to switch your mind mentally to go, okay, we can make this happen. I don't know if you have to just set a small, even just the smallest goal. For me, it was seeing that we could diversify and have be working for several people at one time and not have to worry so much about losing one stream of income, because that would be really bad to lose the only income source into our house. So when I started to realize, oh, okay, like we could have 3 people paying us. If one person leaves, it's not so bad. That was a shift for me. But once I was able to make that mental shift, so once you figure out what that one little thing is that's going to give you more confidence to move forward, it is mind-blowing how much more like I walked in my path after that. How much more I supported you after that. Like I already thought I supported you on wanting to be an entrepreneur, but once we made that shift, like you had me on board. I was like, I'm with you.
You
like
just
I
needed
don't
to
feel
see
like
a
I
little
have
more
to.
proof first.
Yeah, I don't feel like I have to like go make money on the side, or this is like we have to do this. It was more like, cool, what can I do to help us grow? It was like, it just became more exciting for me. So that was my side. So thanks for letting me ramble on about that.
No,
for
it's
a
good.
minute.
So if you're listening to this and you are in your job and you're thinking like, man, I really, am I ready or what, for me, it was that point where someone told me I couldn't do something, right? I couldn't find a faster path to taking care of my family, or, God forbid, if there was something other medical that came up, would they have given me the time off, just a month later after already giving me time off? Like that whole situation was painful enough that even being broke and, not having a job was less painful to think about than that. Because then it was my mom, but fast forward, it would have been, what if something happened to Sam, or what if Sam needed something, or fast forward even more, eventually I knew we would have kids and I wouldn't be, someone tell me I can't go to a dance recital or, take the day off because my kid's, homesick from school. Like, no way. So for those of you that are kind of more motivated by pain, I hope you, get something from that. But those that maybe need to see a little bit more proof or you're working with a spouse who is an entrepreneur, but you're not quite there yet. Like our friend Angelo, like his wife isn't an entrepreneur, but he's in his, going on his second year of being an entrepreneur and doing great financially, better than he ever did at his great job. And now I think it's only a matter of time before, his spouse goes, hey, you know what? You're onto something. Like, we have a lot more control and freedom and flexibility. So,
yeah. So let's move on to one more question, because I don't want to run too long on the No BS business tips. So I have a minute to do my marriage minute. But what are, this one came from Harry in Boston, Brandon. What are the biggest keys to being a great marketer?
The biggest keys. Okay, it's funny. This is timely because yesterday I had just my mind blown. We've been in marketing since I can remember, but our business has been a marketing agency for 10 years. So I feel like I know a lot about marketing, and I still got kind of punched in the face yesterday. I'm at this mastermind with about 100 of the most talented marketers in the world, all paid $25,000 to be here, and we've got Dean Graziosi in like a little private session, about 10 of us, and we're asking him questions. This guy, if you don't know who Dean Graziosi is, Google him. If you've seen any Saturday infomercial, he ran an infomercial, did like $200 million since airing it on, I think his first thing was Motor Millions, how to flip cars, like lease cars, talking about good debt, right? He would like lease a car and then somehow had a way to basically drive nice cars for free, or even make money doing it. And then, of course, got into real estate and teaching real estate education. But yeah, from a guy that had to be on video and do infomercials, he kind of broke down what I already knew, but the way he explained it was just kind of amazing. So for me, it is, before going into this session, it was really understanding your customer. If you just are good at putting yourself in your customer's shoes, you'll be a better marketer than 90% of the quote, like self-proclaimed marketing experts out there. If you just really understand your customer, and as Dean was saying, you camp out in their mind, you can just crush it because you understand their pains, you understand their desires, you know them. And I just thought that was the way that he explained it, and coming from, you can read it in a book, or you can go to other seminars, but to hear it from, to get that kind of validation from someone who's done 200 million and speaking to the general market, it was pretty awesome. So he gave a little tip on how to get there. He's talking about before he starts any video or any of his messages, anytime he wants to get something across, obviously he's selling, right? He's selling an idea, he's selling an opportunity, a message. He's selling you on believing that you could do this too, just like thousands of other people have done it. And he talks about, when he talks about camping out in their mind, you're thinking of what is it that they want. They don't want just the money. It's what is it that's going to bring them? Like, how is that going to change their marriage when they get to come home and tell their wife, go upstairs, honey. I know we're been kind of strapped, but put on your dress. We're going to go out for a nice dinner, and you've got this check from like the first deal you did, or the promotion, or the first business check, or whatever, and you're telling her like it's going to be okay now because now we're in control of our financial. And he's like telling this story that I think, regardless of where you're at in life, you can relate to a time where you were in that place and you didn't feel like you were providing, or you didn't feel like a man. Obviously, talking to guys, and it was just really cool the way he did it. Like, you just kind of felt the whole room kind of shift and connect with that. So telling a story that's already going on in your customer's mind, and then bridging that gap and telling them what to do. Like, all right, so this is what you want, and here's how the product or service that I have will help you get there. And it becomes a very logical decision. People make decisions based on they make them based on emotion first, and then they back it up with logic. So just an excellent marketer really understands their customer on a deep level. And I think it's no surprise that some of the best clients and companies that we've worked with have either been people that we are the customer first. Like a lot of clients we've worked with, it's because we first were a product of the product. So we were passionate about the campaigns and the marketing and everything that we did. And a lot of, speakers and authors attract customers that are kind of like them, right? Because people are attracted to their story and where they came from. So it was kind of a long, repetitive way to say, just know your customer. If you don't know your customer, it's so easy to be like, I have this great product and my product does this or my service does this. But that's very selfish and all focused on the thing. And really,
yeah, it's like sometimes you don't know, sometimes you just don't you think you know what's best for somebody, but you don't actually know what they're looking for. And when you actually know what they're looking for and you're able to provide that, that's something that Brandon did years ago, just finding that need in the market. We thought that people just needed websites built, but that wasn't necessarily the case.
Right.
Like they were looking for more. And when Brandon was able to figure that out, we were able to shift our business. That's what turned our website development business into a marketing company. And it's the same difference. Like if you're a speaker or a trainer and you have products, like don't just assume you know what your person needs. Like you got to go and do the research and interact with them and find out what they need. And then you have the education behind it and the tools they need to be able to go execute on the stuff that they want. But first you have to figure out what it is that they want before you can give it to them. That's like the quick and dirty version.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
They didn't want websites. They wanted customers. They wanted phone calls. They didn't want even the speakers that were doing millions a year. They didn't want a website or they didn't want marketing. They wanted a way to be able to get new customers without having to live out of a hotel in a suitcase and travel over. And I mean, a lot of these speakers and authors, they go on tour basically, and they are always traveling. Well, that gets to be hard after years of doing it and having a family and being away from your family and stuff. But if that's the only way you can get customers, then you got to do what you have to do. But with the internet and digital marketing, as our business changed, I listen to the customer. I hear how tired they were of speaking, how tired they were of having to travel. It's one thing to do it because you want to. It's another thing to do it because that's the only way you know how to get customers. So. Yeah,
so that kind of leads on. I'm gonna move on to my marriage minute. If you're done, are you done on that one question?
I'm done, baby.
Okay, why are you laughing at me? I'm just moving it forward because it does, you're talking about the feeling the need to having to travel versus wanting to travel, and that kind of leads into what I wanted to discuss real fast on the marriage minute. We'll end on a high today, which is, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? Which is a question that we have asked ourselves many, many times. There was even a point in our relationship where we would maybe get in a disagreement about something and Brandon would be like, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? And it used to really annoy me if I was mad at you and you were asking me the question. I'd be like, I'd rather be both. But really, if you think about that, it's a really good thing to
I'd rather be
reflect on. I would rather be both, I know, but sometimes you don't really have the choice. So I want to break it down real fast, because if you actually Google the term, would you rather be right or happy, there will be several psychology websites that they'll all tell you the same thing. All the articles say the same thing. So when you're younger, you go and have life experiences, and as you're going through these experiences, you're determining what is right and what is wrong. And you hold on to that your entire life. So think about yourself and your spouse, for example. I grew up a certain way, and so I think something's right versus wrong, versus Brandon grew up a certain way and he thinks some things are right versus wrong. Well, when we get together and I'm trying to force my opinion on him and he's trying to force his opinion back, that's where conflict happens, right? Whether it be a money thing or where we're going to dinner. And a real life example that does happen in our house even today is I cook dinner in our house. So when I cook dinner, my viewpoint of it is I'm taking the time out to cook dinner for Brandon and the kids. And so at the end of the day, though, I like my kitchen clean before I go to bed. I want the dishes put away. And that's kind of the responsibility over the years that Brandon's taken on. You cook, I'll clean. You cook, I'll clean. Well, sometimes Brandon doesn't want to put the dishes in the dishwasher before bed. And when I see that, like in the past, it's not so much anymore unless he does it for like 3 days in a row. Then I'll be like, all right, Brandon, you did this 3 days in a row. Can you go do the dishes before bed? But if it's just once or twice, I had to start taking a step back and looking at the situation and going, why am I getting so worked up? Why do I have to have so much control over the dishes being done? Is there something different that I can do to get through this situation and not be like angry about it? Why do I have to go start a fight with Brandon that he didn't do the dishes? So what I ended up realizing is this need to be right, flex your muscle to just be happy instead and work on creating a better habit with that and just see the difference, because it makes such a huge difference when you just go, okay, do I have to be right? Or is there a different way that everybody could just be happy with the situation? So for example, with the dishes, what I did was this. Whenever I would recognize what's going on, I could maybe start to feel like it's not like my blood boiling. It's not that deep, but just
I
start to feel
wrong.
Gosh, he's going to leave these dishes in the sink all night, and then I'm going to wake up and smell the food in the kitchen, and I don't like it, and blah, blah. I just sound like a big whiny baby. So first off, I just have to recognize what I'm doing. Then what I do is I always take a step back, and I just look at the situation as a whole. What do I really want the outcome to be? I just want the dishes put away. So I know that we've, in our house, decided that is Brandon's responsibility, but maybe he had a really long day at work, or maybe he had a lot going on his plate, or maybe he was so busy playing with the kids that he was having a great time and just wanted to spend a little extra time with the children. Or maybe he wants to put the kids to bed early because he really just wants to have some intimate time with me, and I don't know what's going on in his head. So can I do a couple of dishes while I'm cooking? The pasta's boiling, I have 10 minutes before it's ready. Can I go start to do the dishes for him? What I actually noticed is not only was I calm about the situation, I was happier about the outcome. I either got all the dishes done for you, right? Then now we had more time to go do other things together. Or what also happens is Brandon actually sees that I put some effort in to help him with the dishes. Maybe I cleaned out the dishwasher, or it was already cleaned out and I started putting dishes in the dishwasher. And he sees that I did that, and he almost feels bad. And no matter how tired he is or how much he doesn't want to do those dishes, he almost feels bad to the point that he'll go do the dishes that night and not leave them in the sink. And everybody wins. And it's so much better than me going up and being like, dude, are you going to do the dishes? And just who wants to be approached with an attitude like that?
Right. Or there's a clear right or wrong answer. Yes, I did agree to that, but so I'm wrong. Am I wrong if I don't do the dishes? Well, no, not necessarily. But if you're always it's easy when you live with somebody, right? Your spouse. There's always these little things like I forget to refill the toilet paper, right? Or things like that. It's like those things happen every single day, multiple times a day, and we definitely went through a phase where it was like, oh, you're supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do that. Well, yeah, but we're also supposed to help each other. And at the end of the day, we both just want to be happy. So, it's not about a scorecard of how many times one does something right or wrong or making each other perfect. It's that flex either way. So, I love it, babe.
Awesome. Cool. Well, why don't you take us out for the week? I know you have to get over to your mastermind, so I could talk to you all day because this is probably the most time I've had out of you since you've been gone.
3 days.
I know. I crave it. So I can't wait for you to get home. So I kind of want to end the podcast because I know that we're one step closer to you getting on that plane and getting back to me. So take us out for the week. Thank you guys, by the way, for joining us. We really appreciate you guys coming in and tuning in every week. So thank you so much.
Yeah, make sure to give us your reviews, comments, feedback on MiddletonMethods.com, and subscribe to get free stuff and notifications every time we have a new podcast come out. Anyway, listen, guys.
Oh, speaking, I'm so sorry. I almost forgot. No, I'm not shooting you down at all. I'm so sorry, baby. Forgive me. You would have seen me. I'm waving my hands, but you're not sitting next to me. Okay. You just said free stuff. Go opt in for free stuff, and it totally reminded me, guys. We are starting a loyal listener little thank you. I want to give a shout out to Craig Henry. He has he started sharing our podcast with people and telling everybody how great it is, and it is like a must listen to podcast. And I really felt the love when he went and did that.
He's
and
like an ambassador.
Edification is probably like my favorite love language. I just love to feel good. And so when he did that, I just went to Brandon and I said, we just got to do something nice for him. So Craig, I'm reaching out to you on Facebook as I want your address. I have a little gift that I want to send you, just to thank you. Like you're just totally doing something out of service to help other people and giving us a shout out. And, I just want to thank you for that. So I'm going to be reaching out to you for your address. And thank you so much for being a loyal listener. And
thanks, Craig.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, babe. Go ahead.
No,
the spotlight is yours.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys sharing. That's the biggest thing. If you hear something that can help somebody else, that's how this gets around, and we help more and more people tighten up their marriage and communication and all that good stuff. But listen, guys, we are not perfect. Marriage isn't easy.
Hey, watch your mouth.
Marriage isn't easy, and we're not perfect, but we are putting in the work daily to make it work. So we hope you got some tips here today, some different perspective, big thing, different perspective and insights here. But of course, take what you want, and what you don't want, don't take. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next week, guys. Take care.
I can make the pain disappear, and I can erase the past. Oh, I can make the future shine so bright, and I can make right now